He thought I wouldn't find out. He took her to Paris, the city he once promised me for our anniversary. They stayed in a luxury suite. They ordered champagne. They lived my dream. But here's the part that still makes me smile. I didn't call him. I didn't confront her. I sent the hotel bill to her fiancé with a personal note. And what happened next? That was my Paris. Before we begin, comment below which city you're watching from and don't forget to subscribe. My name is Avery Morgan. I'm 29 years old and I live in Charleston, South Carolina. By day, I run a boutique travel agency, helping couples plan honeymoons, anniversaries, and once-in-a-lifetime getaways. It's funny people call me a hopeless romantic. And for a long time, I believed I had the kind of love I spent my days selling to the outside world. Noah and I were perfect. Married young, built a life from scratch, and supported each other. Through everything, he worked in real estate. I worked in dreams. And together, we were going places, or so I thought. This isn't the story of how I found out about the affair. It's the story of what I did next, because when I discovered that, my husband took his mistress to Paris. I didn't scream. I didn't beg. I did something much better. I sent the hotel bill to her fiancé. It was a Tuesday afternoon when the pieces began to fall into place. I wasn't snooping. I wasn't suspicious. I was just doing what I always did, balancing our monthly travel expenses. Noah and I had a joint credit card for travel-related charges. He rarely used it unless we were booking something together. So imagine my confusion when I saw $4,738.26 charge from a luxury hotel in Paris, dated 2 weeks ago, while I was home, sick with the flu. At first, I thought it was a mistake, maybe. A client had accidentally used the business card. Maybe he had booked something for a colleague. There had to be a reason. I called him. He didn't pick up. I called again. Nothing. So I did something I hadn't done in years. I logged into his email, not out of paranoia, just instinct, and there it was, a reservation confirmation. 2 guests, 1 king bed, breakfast included. Her name was right there. Second line under his Claire Bennett. I recognized it instantly because Claire was someone I knew, not a stranger, not a random fling. She was engaged to Noah's best friend. I had helped her pick out her wedding colors. I sat in silence for almost an hour, and then I smiled because I knew exactly what I was going to do. I wasn't going to confront Noah. I wasn't going to text Claire. No. I was going to send the hotel bill to her fiancé wrapped in a neat little envelope with a bow. Let me tell you a little something about the travel industry. When you work in it long enough, you learn a lot about timing. When to book a flight, when to hold off, when to upgrade, when to strike. And this was no different. I didn't send the bill, right? Oh, wait, first, I called the hotel, spoke to the concierge, polished my voice into my sweetest, softest southern charm. Hi, this is Mrs. Morgan. My husband recently stayed with you, and I just wanted to double-check a few details for tax purposes. They confirmed everything. Dates, room type, even added a little cherry on top. And we hope Mr. and Mrs. Morgan enjoyed the complimentary couple spa treatment. Mr. and Mrs. Morgan. I hung up calmly and stared at my screen. Then I printed the entire reservation confirmation, stapled it to the itemized receipt, wrote a short note in neat handwriting, in case Claire forgot to tell you where she's been. Thought you should know what your future wife enjoys when she thinks no one's watching. And I mailed it to Ethan Pierce, Claire's fiancé. No return address, just a smiley face drawn in ink. I didn't tell anyone what I had done, not even my best friend Shelby. Revenge, when done right, doesn't need an audience. It just needs precision. And that was just the beginning. The envelope reached Ethan 3 days later. I know this not because he called me, not because he posted anything, but because I had it tracked. I paid the extra fee to the shipping company to confirm receipt with a signature. And when that little green check mark popped up on my tracking app, I sat back with a hot cup of chamomile tea and waited for the world to shift. At first, nothing happened. Noah came home that evening like everything was normal. He kissed my forehead, complained about the heat, and poured himself a glass of bourbon before turning on the TV. He had no idea what was already in motion. By the next morning, though things started to crack. It began with a group chat one I was no longer part of. The one Noah had with his childhood friends, including Ethan. I wasn't supposed to see it. But years ago, Ethan had once added me as a backup admin when he was planning Noah's birthday trip. He must have forgotten to remove me. And now that chat was buzzing. Ethan, you piece of shit. Noah, what are you talking about? Ethan, you know damn well, Paris, Claire? Noah, Ethan, don't even try it. Don't. UF *** ing dare. I watched as message after message rolled in. The other guys were stunned. A few tried to calm things down. But Ethan was volcanic. He didn't stop with text. An hour later, I got a call from Shelby. Girl, did you see Ethan's post? I pulled up Facebook. There it was. Ethan Pierce. Funny thing about loyalty. It only takes one hotel receipt to realize who deserves your forever and who is just wasting your time. Engagement's off. It had over 400 comments within the hour. Claire had deleted her profile. Noah was still silent, and I was in my kitchen, baking banana bread. That evening, Noah finally cracked. He walked in the door with a storm behind his eyes. What the hell did you do? I didn't look up from the sink. What are you talking about? He slammed his keys down. Ethan, Claire, he said he got an envelope. You did that, didn't you? I turned slowly. Are you asking if I mailed a printed receipt of your Paris getaway to your best friend's doorstep? He stared at me, waiting, hoping I'd say no. I smiled. Yes. Noah, I did. He stared at me like I had slapped him. You just ruined everything. I tilted my head. No, you did. I just signed the delivery. He opened his mouth, probably to shout. But I raised a hand. Please don't insult both of us. By pretending this is about me. He clenched his jaw. Do you know how much damage you've done? Ethan's like a brother to me. I laughed, a bitter, humorless sound. And yet you had no problem screwing his future wife. He turned and stormed off into the bedroom. I let him go. There was nothing more to say. The days that followed were tense. Noah tried to carry on like we were just going through a rough patch. He apologized. He bought flowers. He cooked dinner one night, which was laughable since he couldn't even boil pasta properly. I played along. I let him sweat, but inside, I was preparing. I had already booked a session with my divorce attorney. I had already frozen the joint accounts, and I had already begun documenting everything: emails, receipts, screenshots, even a voicemail Claire had accidentally left on our landline months ago. When it was time to go, I wouldn't just walk. I'd leave clean. Noah wouldn't even have a suitcase left to pack. A week after the Paris revelation, I'd leave clean. Noah wouldn't even have a suitcase left to pack. A week after a suitcase left to pack. A week after the Paris revelation, Claire showed up at my office. She looked wrecked, makeup smudged, hair frizzy, eyes red. I was in the middle of reviewing honeymoon itineraries when my receptionist buzzed me. Avery? There's a Claire here to see you. Says it's personal. I took a long breath. Send her in. She walked in like a shadow of herself. Avery. I held up a hand. You don't get to speak first. Sit down. She obeyed. What did you think was going to happen? I asked. She swallowed hard. I didn't mean for it to go that far. You got on a flight to Paris, Claire. That's not a slip. That's a plan. Tears welled up. Ethan won't even look at me. Good. She blinked. What do you want from me, Avery? An apology? I stood up. Double quotes. No, I already got what I wanted. The truth is out. The damage is done. And now? Now you get to live with the same emptiness you left behind in other people. She looked like she wanted to say something else, but she left, and I never saw her again. That night, I stood on my balcony, glass of wine in hand, looking out over the Charleston skyline. The air was warm. The city lights flickered, and for the first time in weeks, I felt free. No more lies. No more pretending. Just the clean silence of a woman who had been underestimated for too long, and finally took back the narrative. This wasn't the end. Noah started waking up earlier. At first, I thought it was guilt. Then I realized it was fear. He knew I wasn't the type to yell or throw things. He knew I didn't believe in emotional outbursts or dramatic ultimatums. And that scared him more than any screaming match could, because silence, real silence, means the plan is being made, and I was making mine. I scheduled my meetings during hours he wouldn't notice. I changed passwords under the guise of spring cleaning. I even started having coffee dates with old friends who just so happened to include a very sharp real estate attorney and a financial planner. I had one goal: leave without a trace. I wanted to disappear from his life like a luxury watch he forgot he pawned. Shelby was the only person who knew everything. We sat in our backyard one night, legs curled up in old patio chairs, sipping wine like we were college girls again. "You sure you want to go through with this?" she asked. I nodded. "I stayed because I loved him. I stayed because I believed in us. But the second he stepped off that plane from Paris, he stepped out of my future." She let out a low whistle. "And you're still so calm about it?" "Because I'm not giving him my emotions," I said. "I gave him 10 years. That was generous enough. The hard part wasn't packing, it was what I chose not to pack." I left the photo albums, the wedding invitation framed on the hallway wall, the anniversary gift he gave me in our second year, a silver locket I later discovered he had ordered off Amazon. I left all of it. It was his history, not mine. Mine was just beginning. I rented a storage unit across town and moved my important things gradually, a few boxes here, a suitcase there, all under the guise of spring cleaning or business deliveries. I told Noah I was reorganizing our closets. He offered to help. I smiled and told him, "You always get in the way." And he laughed. Just like old times. The day I filed for divorce, it rained. But not the dramatic, movie-style thunderstorm kind of rain. It was soft, steady. Like the sky knew what I was doing and approved. The lawyer had drawn up everything according to plan. I had every receipt, every thread of documentation, and every screenshot neatly filed. "You're not just walking away," my attorney said. "You're walking away clean." Exactly. I waited for Noah to leave for a weekend open house event before I made my final move. In one morning, with the help of Shelby and a rented van, I cleared out the last of my belongings and left my keys on the kitchen counter. I didn't write a letter. I didn't leave a goodbye. Instead, I placed a single envelope on the dining table. Inside was a copy of the divorce papers and a note: "You had your Paris. This is mine." And I left. Shelby let me stay at her place while I figured out my next steps. But truthfully, I already had a plan. I had signed a lease on a small condo downtown. Not flashy, not huge, but it was mine. And when I walked through the front door that day, I didn't feel sad. I felt reborn. There were no shared closets, no toothbrush that wasn't mine, no pretending to be happy. Just the stillness of a place that held no lies. That night I ordered Thai food, sat on my couch with a fuzzy blanket, and watched the rain from my new living room window. Freedom doesn't come in fireworks, sometimes. It shows up in pad thai and peace. 3 days later, Noah called. I didn't answer. Then he texted, "Where are you? What is this? Divorce papers? Avery, can we talk?" Then, "You didn't even give me a chance." And finally, I messed up. "But we can fix this. Please, just talk to me." I turned off my phone and dropped it in a drawer. Let him talk to the silence. Let him feel what I had felt for months, the dull ache of being unseen. The next time I saw Noah, it was completely by accident. I was in a coffee shop downtown, reviewing honeymoon itineraries for a client. When he walked in, he looked thinner, tired, like the weight of his mistakes had finally settled on his shoulders. Our eyes met. He froze. I didn't. I simply raised my coffee cup, gave him the faintest nodded gesture that said, "I see you. I survived you. And I owe you nothing." He opened his mouth. But I stood, gathered my things, and left. I didn't look back. That was the moment I knew this wasn't revenge anymore. This was rebirth. I was just getting started. Read om. Looked good on me. It's funny how you don't realize the weight you've been carrying until you finally set it down. I began waking up without dread. My shoulders, once always tight and hunched, have relaxed into something softer. Something open. Work picked up. I had a few new clients, an engaged couple from Atlanta, a solo traveler planning her first big Europe trip, and a mother-daughter duo looking for a spa retreat in Bali. I threw myself into their stories, into building experiences I no longer had to pretend I was living. It felt good. Clean. And then the past came knocking. It started with a voicemail. "Hi, Avery. It's Ethan, Claire's ex. Not sure if this is still your number, but I'd really like to talk." I stared at my phone. Why now? I hadn't spoken to Ethan since the fallout. After I mailed him the Paris bill, I never followed up. I figured he'd want space, not reminders. And truthfully, I didn't know what I'd say to him even if I did respond, but something in his voice tight, measured, a little lost made me curious. So I texted him back. Hey Ethan, just got your message. What's going on? He replied almost instantly. Can we meet? Just coffee, I promise I won't make it weird. I hesitated. Then said yes. We met at the corner cafe near my office. I wore something casual, jeans, a sweater, a swipe of gloss, but I made sure I looked like I was thriving. Because I was. Ethan looked different. He always had this voice charm, the kind that made him popular without even trying. But now he looked older, wiser, a little bruised around the edges. Thanks for meeting me, he said. Of course. We ordered coffee. He waited until the drinks were in front of us before he spoke again. I never got to thank you, he said. I blinked. Thank me? He nodded. For sending that envelope. For telling me the truth when no one else would. I stayed quiet. He continued. Claire tried to tell me it was a mistake. That she'd felt lonely. That no one manipulated her. But that receipt? That note? It cut through all of it. There's no way to explain a suite in Paris without admitting what it was. I looked at him carefully. You doing okay? He exhaled. Better now, got a new apartment, switched firms. Trying to focus on work and rebuild. I nodded slowly. I get it. We sat in silence for a moment, then he said something that surprised me. You know, I always thought you and Noah were untouchable, like golden couple status. I used to tell Claire, if we can be half as solid as them, we'll be fine. I gave a sad smile. Funny thing about golden couples, they're just polished on the outside. He looked at me. Do you ever think about starting over? With someone new? I studied him. Was this a question or a test? I think about healing, I said carefully. I think about rediscovering who I am without someone else defining it, if love fits into that later. Maybe. Ethan smiled like he respected the answer even if it wasn't the one he wanted. We didn't hug when we said goodbye. Just a nod. An unspoken understanding between two people who had been scorched by the same fire and survived it. That meeting stirred something in me, not romance. Not nostalgia. Clarity. For years, I had curated everyone else's adventures. Their honeymoons. Their once-in-a-lifetime journeys. And now, for the first time in my life, I was wondering, why not me? So I booked a flight. Not to Paris. To Morocco, somewhere I'd always dreamed of going. But never did because Noah thought it was too chaotic and not romantic enough. I packed light. Told no one but Shelby. And when the plane lifted off, so did a piece of me I didn't realize was still tethered to the past. Marrakesh was everything. I'd hoped it would be. Chaos and color. Fragrant spices and tangled streets. Sunsets that melted into orange and gold. I rode camels. I wandered markets. I ate food I couldn't pronounce and laughed like a woman who hadn't tasted joy in years. One night, sitting on a rooftop terrace sipping mint tea, I pulled out my phone. No messages from Noah. A few. Texts from Shelby. And a notification from Instagram. You have a new follower request. It was Ethan. I stared at it for a long time, then I hit ignore. Because some doors, once closed, need to stay. That way, I came back 2 weeks later, tanned, changed, a little braver. Clients noticed. One even said, you seem different. Lighter. I was lighter, stronger, whole, and I realized that this wasn't just a story about betrayal or revenge, or even closure. It was a story about reclamation. Taking back your name. Your power, your life, and refusing to be the footnote in someone else's chaos. This wasn't the end of my story. It was the middle, and the best pages were still unwritten. 2 months had passed since Morocco. Life had settled into a new rhythm. Not easy, but peaceful. I was rebuilding brick by brick my home, my career, my self-worth. Until the envelope came. It was thick, manila, and hand-delivered by a courier. I opened the door, signed the slip, and stared at the name on the front, from the office of Parker and Wills LLP, Noah's attorneys. I didn't even open it at first. Just set it on the kitchen table and stared at it while my tea went cold. When I finally peeled it open, it was worse than I thought. Noah was suing me. He claimed emotional distress, defamation, damages to reputation, and lost income from the Paris incident. Buried in legal jargon was a lie so bold it made my hands shake. that I fabricated the affair and maliciously leaked false information to destroy his business. I sat in silence for a long time, the letter trembling in my fingers, and then I laughed, not because it was funny, because it was pathetic. Noah couldn't win my silence, my forgiveness, or my attention. So now he wanted to win through intimidation. He didn't know who he was dealing with anymore. Shelby drove over the second she heard. He's seriously doing this? She asked, pacing across my kitchen. After everything he did? He's trying to sue you? I nodded. She slammed her hand on the counter. You've got receipts, emails, photos, the hotel bill, for crying out loud. I know, I said quietly. And my lawyer will too. I met with Olivia, my attorney, the next morning. She was calm, collected, with eyes that could slice through walls. She read the letter, raised an eyebrow, and said, He wants to play dirty? We'll mop the floor with him. We built the case piece by piece. Digital forensics on email timestamps, statements from mutual friends who had known, and then the piece de resistance, an email from Noah to Claire, dated 3 weeks before the Paris trip. Can't wait to wake up with you in Paris. Avery still thinks I'm going for a conference, idiot. It was like watching him load the gun and shoot his own foot. The court never even got that far when Olivia's office sent Noah's lawyer's hour. Response complete with exhibits. They folded. Not only did they drop the case, Noah's team offered a settlement, money, confidentiality, a signed apology. Everything he once would have scoffed at, but I didn't want the money. I wanted the power. So I declined. And then I posted a single story to my business page. Sometimes silence isn't peace. It's pressure. And when you release it, the whole world hears you. The inbox exploded. Clients, colleagues, even strangers. One woman messaged me, You're the reason I finally filed for divorce. Another, You just gave me permission to stop apologizing for someone else's bad behavior. And in that moment, I realized something. Noah may have built his life on lies, but I was building mine on truth. And truth, once set free, doesn't need a lawyer. It speaks for itself. A week later, I got a handwritten letter in the mail. It wasn't from Noah. It was from Claire. My stomach tightened as I unfolded the paper. Avery, I don't expect you to forgive me. Honestly, I wouldn't. What I did was selfish, cruel, and weak. I've spent every day since that letter came trying to understand why I became that woman. I was broken. But that's not an excuse. I hurt you. I betrayed Ethan. I destroyed my own integrity. And I will carry that shame. I don't want anything from you. I just needed to say it. I'm sorry, Claire. I reread it twice. Then I folded it carefully and slid it into a drawer, not because I was holding on, but because I had let go. Life moved forward, and I, for once, was leading it. I launched a new blog, the second chapter: travel stories, healing advice, and first-hand essays about rebuilding. The first post, titled, Paris Doesn't Have the Last Word. It went viral. Messages poured in from readers all over the world. Women, men, people caught in relationships they didn't know how to escape. People rediscovering who they were after betrayal. My pain had become my platform and my voice. Finally mine. I never saw Noah again. I heard rumors he lost clients, changed cities, tried to rebrand, but he never resurfaced in my world because I had made sure of one thing. I wasn't the woman he left behind. I was the woman he'd never find again, and that was the real revenge. The blog changed everything. What started as a few weekly posts quickly spiraled into something larger. I was invited to speak at women's retreats. Podcasts reached out for interviews. Brands offered sponsorship deals. The second chapter wasn't just a blog anymore. It was a movement, but even movements have quiet corners where ghosts can hide. Mine showed up on a Sunday morning. I had just finished recording a podcast episode topic, reclaiming peace. After public betrayal, when I saw the message request in my inbox, the name stopped me cold. Grace Holloway. My cousin. My childhood best friend. The one who disappeared from my life 10 years ago after an explosive falling out. We hadn't spoken since, not when I got engaged, not when our grandmother passed, not even when my life fell apart. And now, out of nowhere, she had sent me a message. Avery, I know I'm probably the last person you want to hear from, but I've been following your blog. I read every word. And I need to tell you something about Noah. Please, will you meet me? I stared at the screen for a long time. My heart beat like it was trying to claw its way out of my chest. Noah. Grace. Together in the same sentence. I didn't want to open that door, but something deep in my gut whispered, you have to. We met at a quiet cafe in the suburbs. Far from my usual hangouts, I got there first and took the corner booth. When she walked in, I barely recognized her. The wild curls were gone, replaced by a sleek, grown-up bob. Her once mischievous eyes now held something. Tired, older. Hi, she said softly. Grace, I replied, more out of obligation than affection. We ordered coffee. We didn't speak again until the drinks arrived. Then she said it, I slept with Noah years ago. The world didn't tilt. It didn't explode, it just went silent. My hands were steady on the mug. When? I asked. She looked down. Right. After he got engaged, we were all at that lake house. He came out to smoke, I came out to clear my head, and it happened once. I stared at her. You never told me. I hated myself, she said, and you were so happy. I couldn't bear to ruin it, but I carried it. Every time I saw your engagement photos, every time I got your wedding invite, every time I watched you post pictures of your perfect life, I wanted to say something, but I didn't. I didn't know how. Tears welled in her eyes. She reached for my hand. I didn't give it. I wasn't angry. I wasn't sad. I was done. That's not why you're here, I said flatly. She blinked. What? You're not here to clear your conscience. You're here because I'm finally someone. Because now it costs you something to have lied. She looked stunned. I'm sorry, she whispered. I nodded. I know, but that doesn't change what you were. I stood up, grabbed my bag, and left without another word. Outside, I breathed in the cold air. My phone buzzed. A message from Shelby. Proud of you today. Even when they crawl back, you keep walking forward. I smiled because she was right. I was done looking backward. The Grace incident went into my journal. Not online. Not for public consumption, because not every scar needs a spotlight. Some just need acknowledgement. A month later, I gave my first keynote speech. It was at a women's empowerment conference, and the room was packed. Rows and rows of faces, all different, all carrying their own heartbreak. I stood under the lights and told the truth, not just about Noah. About me. How I spent years shrinking myself to fit a mold I never chose. How I confused being agreeable with being loved. How I learned to stop asking, what did I do wrong? And start asking, why did I allow this? When I finished, the applause felt like a release. And in the audience, I saw a teenage girl crying. Next to her, an older woman held her hand. That's why I did this. Not for revenge. For restoration. Later that night, I walked through my apartment, heels in hand, makeup smudged from tears and humidity. I poured a glass of wine and stepped onto the balcony. The city shimmered. Somewhere below. A couple laughed. My phone buzzed again. Another email from a reader. I left him today. You gave me the strength. I'm scared, but I'm free. I whispered into the night, me too. And I knew part 7 wasn't far away, but I wasn't afraid. I was ready when I started writing the second chapter. I never imagined it would become more than a blog. But a few weeks after that night on the balcony, something happened that would become the final turn in my journey. A major publishing house reached out. They wanted to turn my story into a book. At first, I thought it was a scam. But the email was real. The editor had read every post. She said the writing was raw, honest, and gripping. We think your voice is exactly what the world needs right now. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there staring at the screen, letting it soak in. This time, my name wasn't attached to someone else's shadow. This time, my name meant something. The process wasn't easy. Writing a blog post is one thing. Writing 80,000 words about your darkest days is another. But I wrote every morning before sunrise, every night after my calls. I went back through old emails, old journal entries, even those horrible moments when I doubted my worth. I put it all in, the heartbreak, the betrayal, the Paris, receipt. The lawsuit. Grace. All of it, because this wasn't just my story anymore. It was a lifeline for someone else out there. On the day the book was finalized, I sent one last message. Too. Noah, you once said no one would believe me. Now the world does. Don't worry. I changed your name, but I didn't change the truth. He never replied, but I knew he saw it. The book launched 6 months later. The title? Unbought silence, it hit the bestseller list in 3 weeks, and one morning, as I walked into a bookstore for a signing, I saw a girl standing by the window. She looked about 20, holding my book like it was armor. She wasn't smiling, but she was standing, and I saw myself in her. Shelby flew out for the release party. She wore a bright red dress and heels that clicked with authority. She raised a toast halfway through the night to Avery for proving that the best revenge is becoming the version of yourself they never believed you could be. The crowd roared, and I finally allowed myself to weep. Not from sadness, but from the overwhelming relief of having survived something meant to break me. A year later, I bought my first home, not a house, Noah, and I had picked, not something borrowed or sentimental. My own, with floors I danced on barefoot, windows I opened wide, and a garden I planted myself. Lavender, basil, a small lemon tree that didn't quite thrive but refused to die. Kind of like me. On the last page of my book, I wrote, I am not a victim. I am not the wife left behind. I am not a footnote in someone else's betrayal. I am a woman who stayed when she should have walked. And then walked when she had every reason to stay. This is not a story about Paris. It's about the woman who came home and became her own compass. That's where I'll leave you, not with a dramatic twist, not with another betrayal, but with a woman standing tall. Name intact, voice unwavering, story finally her own. My name is Avery, and I took my pain and turned it into power. The end.